University, we welcome all of us here to this 420th inaugural lecture of our great university. With the exception of the royal fathers here, may I request that every living soul please stand for the Vice-Chancellor's procession in respect of the 420th inaugural lecture of our university. Thank you. Royal fathers, please sit with due respect. Ẹ̀yin bàbá wa kábíyèsí ẹ jókòó.
Please be seated. Thank you. Well, welcome to this 420th inaugural. Citation of Professor John A.O. Oyekunle, presenter of the 420th inaugural lecture of Obafemi Awolowo University, titled Panoramic Dynamics of Environmental Xenobiotics as Friends and Foes, Some Sustainable Remediation Efforts, delivered today, Tuesday, 12th of May, 2026. Professor John Adekunle Oyedele Oyekunle was born on 18th May 1961 at Ifetedo in Ife South local government area, Osun State, Nigeria. He attended Roman Catholic Mission Primary School, Okealafia, Ifetedo. He was one of the 2 students who had grade 1 in the Western State School Living Certificate examination. He also attended Ifetedo Grammar School, Ifetedo, from 1977 to 1982 and finished with 5 distinctions and 3 credits in his WAEC result. He later attended Adeyemi College of Education, Ondo, between 1983 and 1987, where he completed his BSc Ed Chemistry degree program as the overall best graduating chemistry student. He had his MSc and PhD chemistry from Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife in 2001 and 2008, respectively. Professor Oyekunle joined the services of the Federal Ministry of Education in 1989 and taught chemistry, mathematics, and further mathematics in some of the schools to which he was posted. He joined the services of Obafemi University Ile-Ife as an assistant lecturer in 2003 and rose through the ranks to become a professor of analytical and environmental chemistry in 2017. So far, he has completed the supervision of 32 MSc and 14 PhD students. Altogether, Professor Oyekunle has published 136 academic articles in high impact factor offshore and onshore journals. His number of citations is 2,703. While his H index is 30 and his I-10 index is 68. He's a holder of the prestigious award of Fellow of the Chemical Society of Nigeria, FCSN. He served as the director of the Central Science Laboratory of Obafemi University, Ile-Ife, from 1st August 2022 to 31st July 2025. He is also a member of the Business Committee of Senate of the Obafemi University, Ile-Ife, among others. Professor Oyekunle is happily married to Mrs. Olubomi Abiola Oyekunle, and the union is blessed with God-fearing children. I hereby present to you Professor John Adekunle Oyedele Oyekunle to present the 420th inaugural lecture. Thank you.
fathers in attendance, pressmen, distinguished colleagues, guests of honor, my past and present students, friends from far and near, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today in immense gratitude to God Almighty and the university community for the privilege and honor to deliver the 420th inaugural lecture of the Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife. This is the second in the inaugural lecture from my unit, Analytical and Environmental Chemistry. The first one having been delivered by Emeritus Professors FOI Asubioju on March 7th, 2006 as the 188th inaugural lecture of the Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife. My journey towards becoming a Great Ife community member. In 1970, a relative of my class teacher, who happened to be a student of University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, OAU Ile-Ife, visited our school, that's my primary school. For the purpose of encouraging us, he was asked to briefly address us in a way that would stimulate us to aspire for higher academic attainments in the future. As he began to speak, I was not paying any deep attention to whatever he was saying. Rather, I became so mesmerized by his very smart and neat appearance, gesticulations, and the captivating manners by which he presented his well-articulated short speech. When we were told that he came all the way from Unife and that it was the university that had refined him so much like that, I simply told myself, in the future, I must attend that Unife where men are refined. So, in 1981-82 session, I obtained JAMB form and made Unife my first choice, but my result, though well above 200, fell short of the cutoff mark of my desired course of study. Professor A.A. Jibowo, retired, of Agric Extension and Rural Sociology, who was a friend to my late principal, Chief S.A. Gbadebo, counseled that I should opt for agricultural economics, but I rejected that counsel. The rejection was not exactly out of pride, but because I felt that my father, who never attended any formal school, was not only a successful cocoa farmer, but also the Bali of Owode under Ifetedo land. Why should I attend a university only to go and learn how to be a farmer, where my father could have equally taught me? Hence, that score was wasted on the altar of ignorance. The following session, I wrote JAMB again, and my score, though better than that of the previous year, still fell short of the cutoff mark for the course I wanted. While I was thinking of what to do next, JAMB sent me an unsolicited letter of admission to study BSc Chemistry at Unife, but added that my study center would be at Adeyemi College of Education, Ondo. Thus, I became one of the first set of BSc Science students at ACE, now AFWED. Being the first set, we were handled in a way we consider too strict. For example, on 3 occasions, I had my score reduced from A to B, not even B+, as it obtained then, because the lecturers at ACE were afraid of the sledgehammer of Unife's moderation. Eventually, I concluded my study at ACE in 1987 as the best graduating student of BSc Chemistry. Thus, by 1995, I obtained the postgraduate form to start my MSc Chemistry program. I was offered the admission, but due to ASU strike and other impediments, I could not resume studies until July 1997. With prayer and determination, the program was completed by January 2000, while I was officially offered with the MSc Chemistry degree in 2001. During my final seminar presentation, God granted me favor to satisfactorily answer all the questions from the lecturers in attendance. Also, during the 15 minutes presentation to the panel of examiners of my MSc oral defense, God was visibly in control. The first observation and question by the external examiner after I had presented my narration was, and I quote, "I have been a professor of this area of study for over 15 years, but honestly, I have never heard these concepts well enunciated like this before. Would you like to come to Federal University of Technology, Akure, as a lecturer? Just as I was about saying yes, my head of department then, Professor M.S. Akani, retorted, and I quote, "No, we also need him here. John, may I assure you that within the next 1 year or so, you will have been enlisted as an academic staff member of this department." The promise eventually materialized on 31st of July, 2003, when I was granted an interview and was told that I had been appointed as an assistant lecturer. Disengaging from a classroom teacher in one of the federal government colleges on grade level 12 to take up an appointment as an assistant lecturer required some stoical courage because of several fearful and dissenting voices and pieces of advice from other people around me then. However, what was playing out was my greatest dream at the time. Hence, I prayed until God assured me, saying, "Go, I will deliver Ife into your hands." That God supervised my journey to attaining the cadre of Professor of Analytical and Environmental Chemistry on 1st October 2017. God alone is worthy of all the glory. Introduction. My Vice-Chancellor, sir. The inaugural lecture being delivered today is titled Panoramic Dynamics of Environmental Xenobiotics as Friends and Foes, Some Sustainable Remediation Efforts. What does panoramic dynamics of environmental xenobiotics connote? The panoramic dynamics of environmental xenobiotics refers to the global presence and constantly shifting or changing behavior of xenobiotics within and among the environmental compartments. Once in the environment, these xenobiotics can bioaccumulate through food chains, undergo chemical transformations, and continuously impact the environment in such complex ways that can neither be readily predicted nor modeled with a high degree of accuracy or precision. Efforts are only made to simplify the unknown and proposed reactions that are determined by intricately interwoven factors, such as the physical-chemical properties of the xenobiotics, climatic conditions, and so on and so forth. All of these factors can alter the degradation rates and the distribution pattern of environmental xenobiotics. The ease with which xenobiotics migrate from one compartment to another makes them to be quite ubiquitous. They reach water bodies through agricultural surface runoff, percolation-related phenomena, industrial effluents, and atmospheric deposition, all of which can lead to contamination of potable water and aquatic life. Inside an aquatic ecosystem, for example, the xenobiotics can cause developmental, morphological, and functional abnormalities in fish, embryos, and other aquatic organisms. Usually, the xenobiotics persist in soil, thereby disrupting its ecological balance. A critical aspect of dynamism of xenobiotics is bioaccumulation and biomagnification in living things, where they become increasingly concentrated as they move up the food chain. What are xenobiotics? Generally, xenobiotics are health compromising biologically active chemical substances that are foreign to a living organism, but which are not normally produced or expected to be present in that organism. Examples are inorganic pesticides, cyanide salts, potentially toxic metals, and so on and so forth. Once present above certain threshold levels in living organisms, xenobiotics can cause acute or chronic health challenges. In humans, environmental xenobiotics have been implicated for causing neurotoxicity, immunotoxicity, nephrotoxicity, hepatotoxicity, cancer, and the rest. Major environmental compartments of the Earth. The Earth environment can broadly be categorized into 4 major compartments, namely the atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. These compartments are so closely connected to form intersections within which complex reactions that cannot often be described by a single line balance equation take place. The interconnectivity of the major segments of the Earth environments leads to the formation of what are referred to as minor compartments. Atmosphere. This is the cover of air that envelopes the Earth. It protects and sustains living organisms on the Earth by absorbing harmful cosmic rays and electromagnetic radiations from the sun. Hydrosphere. This is the region of the Earth that is related to water. It includes sea, ocean, rivers, streams, reservoirs, ponds, glaciers, polar ice caps, groundwater, etc. Lithosphere. This is the solid portion of the earth. It is made up of essentially a complex combination of different types of rocks, mountains, weathered rocks, and so on. Biosphere. This is the region of the earth where life exists. It covers the entire realm of living organisms and their interactions with the other segments of the earth environment. Minor environmental compartments of the earth. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, from my experience in the process of teaching environmental chemistry to both undergraduate and postgraduate students, over the years, I have become conversant with the fact that reactions going on within the zones of interaction of the major earth compartments differ in types and rates from those going on within a given major earth compartment. For clearer explanation, I have referred to the zones of intersection of major compartments of the earth as atmolithosphere, hydrolithosphere, and atmohydrosphere. Understanding the chemistry that goes on within these minor compartments is a critical imperative for proffering solution to the barrage of chemical-related impacts that are capable of destroying the ecosystem in gradual but profoundly alarming ways. The chemistry of xenobiotics within a distinct earth compartment seems readily explainable. For instance, in the atmosphere, polychlorobiphenyls may be destroyed by hydroxyl radicals or by photolysis of carbon-carbon bonds. Whereas within the hydrolithosphere, microbial degradation occurs faster through aerobic and anaerobic processes. Here, bacteria such as Buccardia, Pseudomonas, Rhodococcus, and Commonas break down less chlorinated PCBs into other less harmful compounds like chlorobenzoic acid under aerobic conditions in the presence of enzymes such as biphenyl dioxygenase. Microbial degradation of PCBs via anaerobic dechlorination of highly chlorinated PCBs that are resistant to aerobic breakdown by dihalococcoids removes chlorines and renders such PCBs less toxic and more susceptible to further aerobic degradation. Environmental distribution of xenobiotics. The distribution of xenobiotics in the environment has become so massive to the extent that the natural recycling ability of the environmental compartments has been stretched to a dreadful limit. Except the stakeholders wake up and do something about it, we are all living in serious dangers of pollution impacts. From the air we breathe in, to the water we drink, or the food we eat, or the soil we plant our crops on, levels of xenobiotics keep escalating almost on a daily basis. There have been reports of drinking water wells, soil, surface water, sediments, and so on, being contaminated by chemicals such as potentially toxic metals, trace organics, and microbes. Even the environments of cold regions of the world, including both Arctic and Antarctic regions, which are known to contribute negligibly to global pollution, have had pollutants detected at concentrations that were higher than non-cold regions of the world. Xenobiotics as friends and foes. Everything God has created is good. However, in the hands of humans, whether the created things we serve as friends or foes is a function of how we deliberately or inadvertently use our creative intelligence to manipulate and marshal these things for good or bad. With the Industrial Revolution and the concomitant industrialization and modernization that followed, humans have ventured into creating friends and foes simultaneously as a result of pleasure that accompanies scientific discoveries and stress that characterize these managed resources or our inability to manage the byproducts of our discoveries. Potentially toxic metals and metalloids. These are sometimes called heavy metals or trace metals. They are naturally occurring metallic elements with density greater than or equal to 4.5 grams per centimeter cube. Examples include arsenic, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, copper, iron, and so on. Human body can typically handle small dosages of these metals, but larger doses can lead to heavy metal toxicity, which occurs when the body accumulates dangerous levels of the metals. Symptoms of heavy metal toxicity include chronic pain and fatigue, weight loss, anxiety and irritability, cold hands and feet, metallic taste in the mouth, etc. However, these symptoms can as well be due to the effects of organic xenobiotics that are present above tolerable levels in the human system. Acute metal poisoning is rare, but chronic low-level exposure to toxic metals can lead to brain, kidneys, reproductive organs, heart, gut, and liver damage, to the extent that the individual's ability to detoxify and eliminate these metals is disabled. Chronic exposure to dangerous metal levels may be irreversible and cause other serious health issues, including neurological decline and cancer. Arsenic. This is a metalloid. Itself or its compounds have been used in the past in the formulation of fungicides, production of drugs for the treatment of syphilis, making of pigments, production of semiconductors in electronics, treatment of cancer in medical practice, making wood preservatives, mining and metallurgy, glass making, and so on and so forth. To that extent, it serves as a friend. Elevated levels of arsenic in humans is linked to bladder and skin cancers, and also induces diabetes and cardiovascular problems, fever, anorexia, hepatomegaly, melanosia, cardiac arrhythmia, and so on and so forth. Also, arsenic and its metabolites act as endocrine disruptors. Cadmium. Cadmium is a very important metal utilized in electroplating and pigment manufacturing. It is usually obtained as a byproduct of zinc refining. It finds applications as polyvinyl plastic stabilizers and in production of batteries. There is acting as a friend. Even at low environmental levels, however, regular ingestion of cadmium or its compounds can lead to a cumulative body burden with intensification of toxicity. The renal cortex of the kidney is the main target organ in which cadmium has a mean resident time of 30 or more years. At elevated level in the body, cadmium present can cause what we call itai disease or hush sickness, whereby the bones become very, very flaky and can break easily. Iron. Technologically, iron serves as the base metal of many steels that are used extensively in structural materials and related fields. Biologically, iron plays crucial roles in the transport and storage of oxygen and also in electron transport. And it is safe to say that with only a few exceptions in the bacterial world, there will be no life without iron. It is an essential part of many enzyme systems involved in the synthesis of DNA and release of energy from glucose. However, at elevated levels, iron in human system is potentially toxic, with intoxication beginning with vomiting, and due to ulceration of the gastrointestinal mucosa, vomitors become bloody, and of course, stool can turn black. Patients may show signs of shock and metabolic acidosis. Renal failure with hepatitis and coagulation defects, hepatic cirrhosis, polystenosis, and so on and so forth. Some of the effects of iron overload in human system. Children afflicted with beta thalassemia major accumulate 4 to 8 grams of iron per year from transfused blood. The body has no mechanism for excreting such a large amount of iron, and most patients die by age 20 from the toxic effect of iron overload. Iron toxicity accompanies the genetic disease called hereditary hemochromatosis. Zinc. This is a component of brass and is used in plating iron to form galvanized iron, which resists corrosion. Zinc is widely used in batteries. It also plays a very essential role in the body metabolism in 2 ways. 1, it is the active site of various enzymes, and 2, it is part of the proteins that act as transcription factors for ribonucleic acid. Low serum zinc, for example, can lead to acrodermatitis enteropathica. At elevated levels, zinc may act as an enemy when it causes carcinogenicity and interferes at different levels with the endocrine system and metabolism of both lipids and carbohydrates. Symptoms of excessive zinc in the body include gastric ulcers, muscle pain, impairment of immune function, dehydration, and so on and so forth. Of course, it has also been implicated for causing or for aiding prostate enlargement in men, which may invariably lead to cancer. Trace organics are stress and foes. In the context of this lecture, trace organics are man-made organic xenobiotic compounds which occur in the environment in very small amounts relative to the volume or body mass of their matrix. Examples of commonly encountered environmental trace organics of health concern are pesticides, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, polychlorinated biphenyls, phthalate esters, fire retardants, etc. Pesticides. These are substances used for both agricultural and non-agricultural purposes to attract, seduce, mitigate, repel, incapacitate, and destroy pests that destroy property, cause nuisance, or spread disease. Globally, over 1,000 types of pesticides are used to prevent food from pests, while the annual global pesticide consumption is close to 2.36 billion kilograms. About 50% of crops in tropical and warm climate countries are prone to irretrievable damages without the usage of pesticides. This underscores the agricultural importance of pesticides in ensuring that food is available for the teeming and ever-increasing world population. In the absence of pesticide application, it has been estimated that farmers will experience a 32, 54, and 78% reductions in the yields of cereals, vegetables, and fruits, respectively. Pesticide usage is responsible for the current ability of the developed countries to produce and harvest large amounts of food crops on relatively small amount of land with a relatively small input of human labor. To that extent, pesticides have served as friends. However, after pesticide applications, numerous studies have indicated that there could be serious health challenges such as neurological damage, developmental malignancies, disruption of the endocrine system, suppression of the immune system, stillbirths, neonatal deaths, and so on and so forth. The United Nations has indicated that acute and chronic toxic exposure to high lethality pesticides usage in farming leads to about 3 million poisoning cases per year, out of which roughly 200,000 death cases are reported in organochlorine pesticides. These are synthetic chlorinated organic compounds widely used in agriculture. Examples include our common gamalin 20. Chemistry name is gamma hexachlorohexane or lindane. When we have aldrin, which farmers call aldrin dust, and so on and so forth. Organochlorine pesticides fall into the category of the most dangerous and persistent organic chemicals. They tend to be very persistent once released into the environment and tend to be poorly soluble in water, but very highly soluble in fat. This implies that they can be incorporated into the ecosystem and food chains where they persist for years and readily bioaccumulate in the fatty tissues. Hence, their levels can be much higher in the fatty tissues than levels in the environment or in food. Organochlorine pesticides usually target CNS, central nervous system, which is very dangerous. Some of my modest contributions to the detection of environmental xenobiotics. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir. Among a large percentage of environmental scientists, there is a popular saying that there remains no pristine environment anywhere on the surface of the earth. The veracity of this claim and similar quandaries can only be ascertained by carrying out well-crafted laboratory experiments in several matrices. To this end, I have carried out extensive studies about the presence and levels of both inorganic and organic xenobiotics in the environment, but my presentation today has been limited to some of my works on potentially toxic metals and organochlorine pesticides, detection of potentially toxic metals in the environmental matrices. Levels of potentially toxic metals detected in packaged water in Agoiwo, Ogun State, range from 0.35 milligram per liter of nickel to 13.53 milligram per liter of lead for sachet water, and 0.14 milligram per liter chromium to 10.71 milligram per liter lead for bottled water. Thus, from the perspective of their heavy metal loads, it was concluded that bottled water was safer for human consumption than sachet water. And I want to say here, with total authority, but with humility, that OAU bottled water functions so well. We can beat our chest to it, that it is a good source of drinking water. We have done 3 experiments or studies, and it stands out, but I want to get to 7th one, then we will publish. Seasonal levels of heavy metals were monitored in the agricultural soil, water and sediments from Ajawere River of Okeosun farm settlement, Oshogbo, Nigeria. The pollution index of the metals indicated that the farm settlement soil was either moderately polluted or very heavily polluted with the metals under consideration. Across the 2 seasons, Range of potentially toxic metals level in milligram per kilogram in the matrices investigated was 3.02 of arsenic to 278.81 of iron. In many instances, levels of metals detected in the samples were significantly higher than the specified guideline limits for utilization of the natural resources investigated. For those who might utilize the water for domestic purposes and the soil sediment environment of the river for planting food crops, heavy metal levels in the matrices investigated gave some cause for human health concern. Groundwater samples collected for 2 months from 10 zones in Ile-Ife were investigated for their total and exchangeable metals. Levels detected ranged from 0.09 microgram per mil of cadmium to 76.79 microgram per mil of manganese. Comparing these values with the WHO provision for drinking water indicated that depending on the untreated groundwater of Ile-Ife as the sole source of drinking could lead to heavy metal-induced health challenges, especially for low metal tolerant fellows and in the long run, even for all other people. Hence, some water treatment techniques that could remove potentially toxic metals in the water samples to safe levels before consumption was recommended. For those who can afford it, making use of bottled water, especially OAU ozonized bottled water, from verified sources, as drinking water could reduce heavy metal-induced health infractions. In a study, a 9-step sequential extraction protocol was embarked upon by Ogunfowokan et al. 2013 to determine the liability and environmental availability of some metals in sediments and water samples from Asunle stream within the vicinity of the Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife dump site. The study showed that the apparent mobility and potential bioavailability for each metal was greater than 70%, while source apportionment indicated that both the water and sediment samples were contaminated with metals mainly as a result of effluents coming from the nearby dump site being discharged into the stream. Meanwhile, water from this stream was being used for drinking by farmers and villagers and for processing palm oil downstream. In 2012, metal pollution impact on the soil environment of a metal recycling factory in a town within the southwest geopolitical zone of Nigeria was carried out. The approximate mean levels of total metals ranged from 0.40 aluminum to 206.19 manganese. All the pollution indices indicated that the soil within the vicinity of the factory was contaminated with cadmium in particular. By 2014, 2 years after, a follow-up investigation was conducted at the same site to further evaluate the likely state of public health risk with respect to the metals previously investigated within the vicinity of the metal recycling factory. With the exception of zinc, where we had 50% reduction, the levels of other metals in the soil had increased by 1.63 to 47.08 folds within a space of those 2 years. This rapid increase in soil metal loads portends some future environmental concern, especially for those living within the immediate environment of the factory. Oyekunle et al. Evaluated in 2022 the species of potentially toxic metals in groundwater of Ifetedo and Garage Olode in Ife South local government area of Osun State. Total mean levels in microgram per mil of potentially toxic metals range from 0.04 cadmium to 26.21 manganese at Ifetedo, while at Garage Olode the range was between 0.02 cadmium and 14.49 manganese. Going by the World Health Organization provision for drinking water, the study concluded that the levels of potentially toxic metals in the potable water samples could constitute some health hazards over prolonged usage unless some water treatment protocols are adopted. Oyekunle et al. 2018 evaluated the possible health implications of some metals in 7 commonly administered over-the-counter pediatric drugs and 8 brands of beverages loved to be taken by Nigerian children. The mean concentrations in microgram per mil of the metals in the OTC pediatric drugs range from below detection limit in cadmium to 6.7 in lead, while for the beverages, the mean concentrations range between BDL in cadmium and 8.79 in zinc. The lead levels in the sample drugs were generally above the threshold levels set by the European Food Safety Authority for children's food, and significantly higher than the values of lead in the beverages. Caution should be exercised to avoid indiscriminate administration of OTC drugs to infants and children, and regulate their consumption of beverages to reduce the prevalence of toxic metal induced short or long-term health effects among them. You may say we are not saying the truth. If you get to the hospital, doctors will tell you several small children and adults having cancer and the rest. That is the truth. Cancer of all manners of cancer. Oyekunle 2018 evaluated the possible health implications of some metals. Sorry, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir. A preliminary investigation about the distribution and concentrations of potentially toxic metals in the surface soil samples around the halls of residence at Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife, Nigeria, was conducted by Oyekunle in 2025. The range of metal concentration in the surface soils was from 34.31 milligram per kg of lead to 473.25 milligram per kg of manganese. Contamination indices and health risk assessments revealed notable pollution levels, particularly for lead, suggesting significant potential health risks for the studied soil environment with respect to lead. This observation highlighted the need to carry out a broader investigation to ascertain the pollution status of the entire university environment so that targeted interventions can to address heavy metal contamination of other components of the environment, particularly groundwater, can be put in place. Bread is widely consumed in many countries of the world. Raw statistics showed that in Nigeria, at least 70% of over 250 million people consume bread almost on a daily basis. About 15 to 20 years ago, if you put a loaf of bread on your table, within 2 to 3 days, it will have grown molds. But today, that loaf of bread can remain on your table for upward of 4 days. No molds will grow. Why? Because antioxidants, especially potassium bromate, thank you, had been added. And potassium bromate has been implicated for causing cancers of diverse types. And so, because of this information, we went to town and sampled bread samples in 9 different locations and outlets. And only one of the bread samples scaled through. That is the truth. Now, we don't know what is happening now. Maybe they have abided. That year, I remember one of my professors telling me, tell us the name of the bread that is good for consumption. And I said it was unethical. Yes. Studies involving organochlorine pesticides. Some years ago, it was widely reported that those who ate amala at a celebration venue in Ile-Ife developed serious stomach cramps that caused them to be admitted at the Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospital Complex, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, with near fatality cases. To unravel part of the likely causes, the content of organochlorine insecticides in dried yam chips and cowpea grains obtained from some wholesale markets in Ile-Ife, Nigeria, was evaluated by one of our students under our supervision by name Olufade in 2014. Organochlorine insecticide residues were detected in all the samples of dry yam chips and cowpea analyzed, with levels as high as 0.58 milligram per kg adrenaline and 0.40 milligram per kg heptachlor recorded in dry yam chips and cowpea respectively. As a follow-up study, Soshan et al. In 2015 reported that levels of DDT and lindane, that's gamalin 20, detected in some stored food items were generally above the EU MRL's level, suggesting that the foodstuffs were not safe for human consumption, as bioaccumulation of these residues could pose health risks to the consumers. And we are suggesting, arising from this study, that we should not be too lazy to go and purchase either our yam or dried godo at a point where it has not reached the sellers in the market. We are eating chemicals on a daily basis. And if you take this precaution, you may elongate your year by some 10 to 20 years. That's the truth. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know many deaths are due to all these terrible things. As you can see in that table, we see the processes, but you have to intercept before it gets to the market where they store. What market people do is they just spray chemicals, and the following day they start selling. All they are looking for is not your life, but money. A method that compares favorably and even perform better than the existing ones to quantitatively determine the concentration of OCP residues in 6 brands of popularly consumed evaporated milk samples in Nigeria was developed by Oyekunle in 2020. Using this method, 18 congeners of organochlorine pesticides were detected in the milk samples with levels ranging from 21.63 microgram per mil in sample B to 39.01 microgram per mil in sample C. Most of the milk samples had various OCP's contents above the recommended WHO FAO average daily intake. Highest values of health risk index for non-carcinogenic health hazards for both adults and children were recorded for sample C, suggesting that long-term non-carcinogenic health problems could emanate from unguarded consumption of this particular milk product over a long period of time. I will not tell you which of the milk is good, but in my house, I don't allow the purchase of certain milk. In an attempt to determine the association between exposure to organochlorine pesticides and incidence of breast cancer, levels of DDT, that's dichlorodiphenyltrichloroethane, and hexachlorocyclohexane in serum of breast cancer patients from this hospital and controls were determined and compared by Awolowo et al. 2018. The mean DDT levels among case and control women were 11.87 ppb and 6.40 ppb respectively. The levels of gamma HCH among case and control women were 11.87 ppb and 6.39 ppb. The levels of gamma ACH among case and control women were 5.82 ppb and 0.00 ppb, while that of lindane were 10.84 ppb and 0.00 ppb respectively. This study confirmed exposure to OCPs among the studied population and revealed significantly higher levels in case women than controls, thereby suggesting that exposure to OCPs may be a significant risk factor for breast cancer cases in Nigeria. If you are doubting me, medical doctors followed us to carry out this study, and they may be on seat. Adekunle Oyedele investigated the levels of organochlorine pesticides in 15 brands of commercially available therapeutic green teas from supermarkets in the southwest part of Nigeria. This was done to estimate the potential health risks associated with their regular consumption. Results obtained show that the tea samples contain organochlorine pesticide residues at significantly higher level than the maximum residue limits set by the European Union. Source identification using positive matrix factorization identified use of DDT and lindane directly or indirectly as the major pathways for some of these OCPs in the teas. Health risk assessment also indicated that the highest risk of cancer was associated with our drink. The study concluded that children were more vulnerable to pesticide-related hazards than adults based on their relatively higher values for estimated daily intake, higher quotient, and cancer risk. What was our suggestion? We should make our green teas from herbs behind our houses. It's a lot better. Because the people planting the teas they are sending to you, they are not also bothered. Do they want you to live? They want you to die so that they occupy your land. They spray their trees with all manners of things so that there will be no infestation. And they harvest and package for you. Me, I have soursop leaves behind my house. I drink regularly. Some sustainable remediation efforts. Karl Marx, in one of his numerous theses, said, and I quote, "Philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it." Thus, beyond the narratives of detecting, quantifying, and reporting, efforts have been put in place to develop flexible, easy to adapt, and well-integrated analytical and remediation techniques that could be adopted in detecting, reducing, and removing these pollutants from our environmental compartments and samples. Thus, Oluyemi et al. 2009 removed toxic metals from waste metals using amberlite resin, plantain pitch charcoal, and other adsorbents Our discovery was that plantain peel charcoal performed better than many of the adsorbents industrially adopted. And why, since we have plantain around the year, why don't we begin to use this locally in Nigeria? Oyekunle in 2023 investigated the effects of different activation methods on the capacity of an agro-waste adsorbent in the removal of multi-component contaminants from wastewater. The result of this study indicated that DCM-treated adsorbents exhibited highest removal efficiency for OCPs in wastewater generally, while H2SO4, that's sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and sodium hydroxide treated adsorbents exhibited significant removal, over 80% of metals from wastewater. Also, the performance of different ionic solvents, sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, and sodium sulfate, was investigated, was explored in electrolytic decontamination of wastewater. And we discovered that 1.0 molar of sodium sulfate will perform beautifully well. Adesanya et al. Developed a method that sought to simultaneously remove organochlorine pesticides, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, potentially toxic metals, and bacteria from contaminated surface water using reduced graphene oxide biochar nanocomposite. The experiment carried out under column pad condition demonstrated the remarkable removal of 99.52% of OCPs, 92.04% polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and 12.25 grams of nanocomposite adsorbent, when applied, actually reduced the level of microbes to a very reasonable level, which we can say is safe. Adewale 2025 investigated how soil modified with carbon can limit the translocation of dangerous metals into the edible parts of vegetables. Honestly, the result we got made me happy, that when you treat 5 kilograms of soil with 150 grams of charcoal obtained from Musa Paradisiaka, okay, the Agbagba. But there is a way to treat it too. You have to consult us to do that. The metal uptake was tremendously reduced, and I think this should be a happy thing for those who want to eat their vegetable from their backyard and want to practice peri-urban farming. Okay. We also developed a method. You see, in this part of the world, you will read it there, we don't have what we call ISE. That's ion selective electrode. Even where you have it, it's difficult to come by. So we went to develop a method using locally available dyes from flowers, common flowers around us within Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife. And we discovered the dye from hibiscus flower really worked wonders. And so we tested it on waters from Madoma and some other areas of Ile-Ife, including PG, and we saw a good result. The joy of it was that the fluoride level in this tested water was below levels that can destroy human health. Concluding remarks. Where possible, devising methods of controlling environmental xenobiotics at the source in a way that incorporates holistic interdisciplinary approach should be a matter of deliberate action. This is necessary so as to avoid the long-term environmental and public health implications of xenobiotics. For Nigeria and Africa, it is the scientists within that must rise to the occasion with the passion that goes beyond just wanting to publish papers. To this end, the Nigerian and African leaders, industrialists, and financially endowed individuals are hereby called upon to increase their support for genuine research activities that will bring about cleaner environments. I announce to us, developed countries will not do this for us. And incidentally, we have skills, but we are not assessing the skills. My modest contributions. In addition to teaching several courses at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels, I have completed the supervision of 32 MSc and 14 PhD candidates, with 3 others ongoing. Arising from my research activities, I have published 136 articles in high impact factor and visible journals. I once won the Southern and Eastern Africa Network of Analytical Chemists award to visit University of Botswana, Gaborone, Botswana, for research collaboration. I have been the chairman and member of several committees under many HODs and things that are here seated. And I have done quite a number of reviews for several journals. At one time or the other, I have been a member of Business Committee of Senate, Procurement Planning Committee of the University, Committee on In-House Workshop for Technologists in Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife, among others. I have been a reviewer for several local and international journals, including Ife Journal of Science. As an active member of my professional association, Chemical Society of Nigeria, I hold the prestigious award of Fellow of the Chemical Society of Nigeria. In the midst of all this, the one that gladdens my heart so deeply is that I was the brain behind the development and or expansion of analytical chemistry curriculum for postgraduate students in a way that meets the standard of expected of a 21st century university, such as OAU. That journey started in 2006, and we succeeded finally in 2018 through 2019 session. With the cooperation of my Oga Professor A.O. Ogunfowokan, Adekunle, Adenuga, and Adebayo, appreciation. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir. I am a product of mercy and grace of God combined. I have been sorely challenged, but God, who called me into being, has never allowed the devil, the evil ones, to have dominion over me. I owe God a lifetime of deep gratitude. My parents of blessed memory, Chief and Mama Oyedele Oyekunle, taught me resilience and practical ways to navigate difficult terrains of life without cheating. I am deeply grateful to them. My siblings, some of whom are seated, Mrs. Foluke Adeosun, late, Chief Philip O. Oyekunle, Chief Joseph O. Oyekunle, Mr. Clement O. Oyekunle, also late, Mrs. Elizabeth O. Ashere, are all appreciated for the roles they played at one time or the other to support my vision of going to school. I also appreciate my other family members, including my brothers and sisters-in-law. Thank you all for being pillars of support for me at sundry times. One of my friends with whom I started primary one is here seated, and I will want him to stand up. Since that time till now, we have remained intellectually compatible. He is Barrister Prince Asanike Isholamuniru Oshuolale. Our primary 4 teacher, a role model par excellence, Mr. Isaac Tunde Omotosho. I suppose your guy is here. If you are here, sir, can you stand up for recognition? Okay, he's here to come, but he promised that he will come. He is also here. I deeply appreciate the presence of the two of you in ways my diction will certainly fail me. It is difficult to achieve any meaningful, fulfilling, and pleasing success without the mutually beneficial cooperation of other well-wishers. This cooperation I have enjoyed from the likes of Professor A.O. Ogunfowokan, Adekunle, Shosan, Awotoye, and the rest of them. Those are the ones within Nigeria. Then I have the others in the diaspora, headed by Professor Samuel O. Oluwafemi in South Africa, and the rest and the rest. In a very special way, I thank Professor M.S. Akani, the man who allowed God to use him to bring me into the system. At a time, Professor Akani, yes, Oga, please stand up for recognition. God bless you, sir. If not for that man, I would have retired 5 years ago and be greeting people from house to house in infected worker around there. In particular, at a time, Professor Akani became so concerned about my seemingly snaily progress and called me into his office for a heart-to-heart interaction. I remember promising him that with God on my side, I will move at the angelic speed of miracles to accomplish great academic feats. By the grace of God today, the rest is history. I sincerely appreciate Professor FOI Ashubiejo. He's away in the US currently, but he's listening to us. He's online. Who will usually fight for the right of others, irrespective of their political or academic divide. He once rescued me from men planted to destabilize and frustrate me in those days. I also appreciate my all-weather friends like Professor Afadiya, Adebayo, and the rest of them. These ones are always ready to stand with me in times of crucial needs. My highly revered member of Ifetedo Progressive Union, national and branches, your presence is a great encouragement for me. I deeply appreciate you all. Old and current students and staff from my alma mater, if you see those children wearing red, where are they? Can you stand up, look at them? I graduated from that school in 1982. Yes, you can see that. Led by the school principal, and my royal father, His Royal Majesty, Oba Akinola Oyetade Akinlera, Latiriwan. You don't stand up. Kábíyèsí o. The Olubosin of Ifetedo Kingdom, who has led the Olubosin Council to this occasion. My amiable classmates of UNIFE, and I want the 4 or 5 of you to stand up, of 1986-87 set, ably led by his, God bless you. They were to be led by Aragbiji of Iragbiji Kingdom, but yesterday in the evening, Aragbiji was called to go and have a national assignment performed in Lagos, and so he sent his chiefs. If they are, please stand up for recognition. My friends from far and near, my old and new students, all my well-wishers who have donated in cash and kind to ensure that this lecture is not too burdensome for me, and more importantly, the Central Working Committee members of the inaugural lecture, enthusiastically prepared by Professor S.L. Fadia. I am grateful to you all. Without you, the event of today would have lacked its glamour. All others from across towns and cities of Nigeria and those participating online, I say thank you for coming. In a very special way, I appreciate all my church members, government, the head of the department. Many of my pastors are here, but I want Baba Adeojo to stand up on behalf of government people. God bless you, sir. You are welcome. The past and present university authorities for granting me the enabling environment to flourish. I say thank you very much indeed. My children, Felix Tosin Oyekunle, James Dari Oyekunle, Esther Jesu Tofumi Oyekunle, and Priscilla Jesu Ferami Oyekunle, you make me deeply joyful for always keeping to your father's instructions. I appreciate you. Keep it up, please. In a very special way, I appreciate my amiable, caring, loving, deeply supportive, stand and remain standing, an intelligent wife who also is a no-nonsense mother of our children. Her timely and correct use of pankere reformatted every early life malfunctioning tendencies of our children. She is also the indefatigable prayer warrior of our family. MB, you are deeply cherished. When all is said and done, I still prefer you to other women. Thank you for standing by me through thick and thin. Finally, I return the glory to my heavenly Father and Lord, who raises up the poor out of the dust and lifts up the needy out of the ash heap, that he may sit him with the princes of his people. Psalm 113, verses 7 and 8. And promise ahead of time, saying, though your beginning may be very small, yet your later end shall increase abundantly. Thank you all for coming.
Presentation of certificate. Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife. Certificate of presentation of inaugural lecture. This certifies that John Adekunle Oyedele Oyekunle, a professor of analytical and environmental chemistry in the Department of Chemistry, Faculty of Science, Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife, Nigeria, delivered the 420th inaugural lecture titled Panoramic Dynamics of Environmental XENOBIOTICS as Friends and Foes, Some Sustainable Remediation Efforts on May 12, 2026. Congratulations.
May I please invite the woman that is preferred to all other women to please come and join the husband. Good evening and good night. Thank you.
More than my mind can comprehend. See, I've seen the wonders of your grace. I'm so sure this is not